Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the long break. Are you ready to call your next witness?
I am, Your Honor. State calls Randy Miles.
There's one up front. Right in the middle. It's available if you want to go start. You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Okay, go and have a seat there. You've got an aerial mic there in front of you. Okay, you can lower your mask if it's, I want you comfortable. Okay? I need you to state your name and spell it for me. And remember, that's what you gotta talk towards the mic. Okay, you're in kind of a fishbowl here, so, okay?
All right, thank you.
Go ahead and state your name and spell it, please.
My name is Randal Miles, R-A-N-D-A-L. Last name is Miles, M-I-L-E-S.
Do you feel comfortable wearing the mask because it's kind of muffling you a bit?
I can if that would help the court.
Well, I want everybody to be able to hear you,
Sure.
okay? Ms. Grubb?
Thank you, Your Honor. Actually, you've been referred to earlier today as Dr. Miles. Would you like to be referred to as Dr., Mr., or Randy?
Either is fine.
Okay, well, let's try Doctor. So Dr. Miles, I understand that you are a pharmacist, correct?
That's correct.
Could you tell us about your level of education, where you got your degrees?
Sure. I have a PharmD degree, which is a professional doctorate degree in pharmacy with Ohio State, from Ohio State.
Hold on, I gotta make sure she's able to get you.
Can you hear? Yeah.
No problem. Run out of link. I received my pharmacy doctorate at Ohio State University, College of Pharmacy, in 2006. I did a postdoctoral residency for 1 year at Mount Carmel West, and I also have an MBA.
Thank you. What year did you receive the MBA?
I believe it was 2017.
Thank you. All right. Have you ever worked anywhere other than Mount Carmel as a pharmacist?
I did some as-needed work at CVS when I first graduated, but that was not full-time or anything.
Okay. When were you hired by Mount Carmel?
2006.
Okay. And what was your level of employment in 2006?
That's the year of my residency.
Okay. And then at 2007, what did your position become?
I became a patient care pharmacist.
Okay. And describe what that is.
There's one type of pharmacist at the organization, so I would work on the floors, I would work in the main pharmacy, I basically worked wherever they needed me to cover. I would take care of the clinical duties, any emergency response for those areas, as well as facilitate procurement of drugs.
And how long were you in that position?
Approximately 5 or 6 years.
Okay. What did you progress to after that position?
In 2012, I became the pharmacy manager, also called operations manager at times.
Okay. And who did you report to in that position?
Sean O'Connell.
Okay. Sean O'Connell. And what was Sean's position?
He was the director of pharmacy.
Okay. And there was another individual, Sarah Hemker, that was in pharmacy management, correct?
Correct, she was a peer.
And what was her position?
Clinical coordinator.
Okay. Is she still at the hospital?
Yes.
Is she still in that position?
No,
Is Sean O'Connell still at the hospital?
he is not.
What position does Sarah now occupy?
She works in our population health division.
Is someone currently in her former position?
Yes.
Who is that person?
Dawn Miller. Dawn Miller.
Dawn Miller? Who currently occupies the Director of Pharmacy position?
That's Corey Enders.
Okay. So let's turn our attention to the years in question. We're basically here involving the years in light green, 2015 to 2018, late fall. What did the organizational chart in the pharmacy department look like during those periods?
At Mount Carmel West,
Mm-hmm.
there was a director of pharmacy,
Sean?
Sean. There was a manager, or operations manager, that was myself. Sarah Hempker as the clinical coordinator, and that was the three that were basically in the leadership committee at that point in
Okay.
time.
And then how many were in the next tier down, the actual patient care or clinical pharmacists?
You know, I can't recall specifics, but there was probably over 20 at that point in time.
Okay.
Hold on one second. Are you guys hearing him okay?
Yes.
Okay.
How about
I
me?
know
Can
you
hear
got
me?
a voice.
I do, I'll try to get a little closer to the mic if that's all right. Can you hear me now?
Better?
Okay,
All right.
thanks.
Because I could see them straining over there. I just wanted to make sure that they could all hear you.
Now, this is a transitional question, but I've been given to understand that the way the line staff pharmacists reported was split, that some reported to you and some reported to Sean. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. How many reported to you and how many reported to Sean?
Somewhere in the low teens reported to me, and the remainder reported to Sean.
Okay, so you had the bulk of them. Is
I
that
would say it was even.
Even? Okay, all right. And did that pertain during all the years that we're discussing here, 15 to 18?
Yes, as people came and went from the organization, we just tried to keep the numbers consistent.
Okay, great. Now, what were your hours in the hospital at that time?
My typical hours, I'd come in 7 o'clock or slightly before that and stay till 5 or so.
Okay. And what days of the week did that involve?
Typically Monday through Friday.
Okay. Were you on a beeper system or just a cell phone? How did people get in touch with you if they needed to outside of your regular office hours?
My cell phone number is posted in the department.
Okay. And did people feel free to use your cell phone?
I think so.
Okay. Did you receive telephone calls after hours or even in the middle of the night?
Yes.
Okay. And was there anyone else that could be called in the middle of the night if need be?
It'd be Sean O'Connell or Sarah
Okay.
Hempker.
So there were 3 that were available.
Yeah, unless they were out of the state or on vacation or something.
Was there a priority tree for that?
On the weekends, there was a specific person assigned for first call, but if they weren't available, other people could be contacted.
Okay, so there wasn't a duty week or rotating schedule?
There was, a rough schedule, but you could always call anybody if you couldn't get a hold of the first person.
Okay. Was the ethic in the pharmacy department collegial?
I think so.
Okay. And was there a free flow of information from one person to the other?
Yes.
Objection as to foundation, sorry.
Just predicate questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Ask the one predicate foundation question and then proceed.
What was the communication like in the pharmacy department?
We communicated daily.
Okay. Did you have meetings and,
There was a weekly email that would go out, kind of going over everything that went on throughout the week prior. Any other short-term changes that needed to be communicated earlier would come out, typically verbally and an email. And there was a daily, handoff in between shifts.
okay, thank you. Let's turn our attention right now to the systems that interfaced with hospital pharmacy. Did you have information technology systems that fed into the pharmacy department, serviced the pharmacy department, or that the pharmacy department relied upon?
Yes.
What were those systems?
There was a variety of different systems that were interfaced. We had a robot that pulled some of our cart fill meds. We have a medication carousel that also held other meds. And then on the floors, there was a Pyxis, piece of technology called Pyxis that stored and released medications on the floors a little closer to the nurses. And then there was also some racking and other things that we would get other label systems so we could gather and get them to the right patient at the right time. And then there was billing software that was separate from that.
How did Cerner, first of all, what is Cerner?
Cerner is a brand of electronic medical record.
Okay. And did Cerner interlock with other management or record-keeping systems that the pharmacy used?
Yes, the Cerner would interface with both the robot, the carousel, and Pyxis.
Okay. And when was Cerner placed into use in the hospital?
About 2012.
Okay. And is Cerner still there today?
It is not.
Okay. When did Cerner move off the stage?
October of last year.
If you know, what class of employees normally have access to a Pyxis machine?
Pharmacist, pharmacy members such as pharmacy technicians and nurses.
Okay. And what would the pharmacy techs do with the Pyxis machine?
They would refill it when it got below a par level, and they would look for outdates and move around stock if we had some stock outs or short supply.
Okay, and was this a scheduled function, or was this done daily or weekly?
It was done daily, also as needed, so if something stocked out, it could be filled at any point in time. There was a report that would generate and initiate communication, so we knew when something stocked out.
Okay. And what were your busiest Pyxis machines in the hospital?
I'd say the ER and the ICU.
Okay. What did the nurses have to do to access the Pyxis machine?
It's two-factor authentication, so it's something you know and something you have. So the knowledge portion is your ID number for work, and the something you have is your biometric ID or your fingerprint.
Okay, so and was it the same for the pharmacists and the nurses?
That is correct.
So if I were going to walk up to a Pyxis machine and try to retrieve something from it, describe for me what I would do.
You would first activate the screen, typically touch the screen and
Touch
bring up
screen.
a enter prompt, and there'd be a little colon there, and you type in your username, and then it would prompt you to scan your fingerprint.
Okay, all right. Why is security like that in a Pyxis machine?
To decrease risk of theft of drugs.
Okay, are there other reasons?
Sure, it's security, and it actually, Pyxis can help with billing as well.
Okay, what about overall safety?
Objection, leader.
Are there further, I'll rephrase. Were there other reasons?
Well, the Board of Pharmacy requires us to have security around drugs, and
Okay.
the Pyxis fulfills all their requirements.
Okay. So does the Board of Pharmacy promulgate rules?
Yes,
Okay. Do you have a large number of rules that apply to pharmacies and these machines?
the Board of Pharmacy does have a fair amount of rules, yes.
Okay. So what are the bases upon which a nurse could obtain drugs from a Pyxis machine?
It would be pursuant to a physician order.
Okay. And what are the two types of orders?
Well, I don't understand exactly what you're asking.
Are there two different ways to retrieve drugs from a Pyxis machine on order?
Yes, so a nurse could, after something's prospectively reviewed and authorized, They would use a profile process, which is they select the patient, they select the drug that is bolded, that is already deemed reviewed and safe and appropriate, or they could use the override process.
Okay. So what happens as far as communication between the Pyxis machine and the other information that is fed into the pharmacy department on override?
The Pyxis machine doesn't, so they're two separate platforms, so the Pyxis machine doesn't have a lot of discrete information back. An order would have to be placed for it to be really seen in the work queue.
Okay, so if drugs are taken from the Pyxis machine on override, what does the pharmacy know at that point?
We don't have good eyes on that at that period of time.
Okay, so we know that, we presume that possibly an authorized user has gone into the Pyxis machine and done the things to get the drug out, correct?
Yes. that's
And
the
then
only
the
way they'd
drug
be
is
able
out. And then if that person is going to administer that drug to a patient, what happens next?
I'm not a nurse, so they would follow their process. There's something called the 5 rights, but I would defer to my nursing colleagues to walk through those specific
Okay,
steps.
I'm more aiming at the bits of information that might pass along. What would the first act be that someone administering drugs would do that would send information to the pharmacy?
They would enter the order. They would enter an order.
No, I mean if they already had it on override.
They would have to enter an order into the electronic medical record or Cerner.
Okay, why don't you back up and let's start it again? Because you got yourself out there and you two aren't communicating very well.
No, we're not, are we? So if the nurse has the drugs on override, what about that drug at that time would need to be told to the pharmacy to let the pharmacy know that it was out there?
I mean, there's reports that we could run that could identify that.
Would the nurse have to go to the patient bed and scan something?
That's part of the administration process. yes.
Okay, so I'm not talking about the 5 rights, I'm just talking about how notice would go to the pharmacy that the drug was out of the Pyxis machine. That's all I'm talking about.
The order would have to be entered.
Okay.
You can scan, you can create an order by scanning it.
Okay, thank you. We had to get the right communication. So the pharmacy, when it's scanned, would then know that there is an order out there.
Correct.
Okay. And if the order is considered out there, would it come across as some verbiage in the queue?
Orders do drop into a queue-based system in the
Okay.
electronic medical record, yes.
And what would the queue say about that order?
It just defines information from the order, and you actually have to go into it by clicking on it to see further information.
Would it say anything typically about what was going on in the override?
No.
Okay. So once this was administered, say it was administered without pharmacy review, and then it was in the queue, what would the pharmacist do with it?
At that point in time, if the pharmacist did not have a chance to prospectively review it, the electronic medical record would only have one button that they could push, which was accept. It would say complete. It was a completed order at that point in time if somebody documented on it. If you click on it, there was one button that could be selected, and that was accept.
Was there a reject option?
Not on a completed order.
And define a completed order.
One that was documented as administered already.
Okay. And that completed order would be revealed in the MAR,
Yes,
medication administration record.
that's correct.
Is
It would
that
be-
correct?
Any
Okay.
documentation of administration is on that.
Okay. Does the hospital have policies involving medications and pharmacy procedures?
Yes,
Okay. And were those policies accessible to staff?
yes.
And when a staff was onboarded, what would they be told about the policies?
They would be shown where they're at. They're requested to review key policies.
Okay. All right. Are there policies with regard to the Pyxis override procedures?
Yes,
I'm going to approach the witness and hand him exhibits that are marked as states 23B, 23C, and 23D.
Are these a series of various policies?
Yes, they are,
Okay, you don't have to tell me what they are, let him identify them.
yeah,
I
okay.
just want to make sure you're showing them multiple documents
Yes.
involving several policies.
Three.
yes, I've seen these before. Yep.
Are these documents substantially similar as far as type?
Yes,
Okay. And what do these documents refer to?
the process to utilize override in the situation that would be
Okay.
appropriate.
All right.
Okay, you both can't talk at the same time.
What did you say after the process to utilize override?
In the situations it would be appropriate.
Do all of these documents have dates on them relating to when they were in effect?
Yes,
Okay. And they were in effect at different times, correct?
yes,
Okay. Do they all share or almost identical special comments on the front page?
from what I could discern from my review, yes.
Okay. I'm going to, may I publish, Your Honor?
Any objection?
No.
Okay. I'm going to publish 23D, which was updated January of 18, and which relates to a good portion of our inquiry today.
You have it on the screen in front of you, and it's on the big screen too.
Yes. Dr. Miles, I'm going to,
Before you go any further, can you guys see that okay? Okay.
I'm going to direct your attention to special comments. Okay? And it starts, override medications are medications that can be accessed by nursing staff before review, correct?
Correct.
And it has 2 bullet points under it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you explain what those bullet points mean?
The sentence before that states that there are 2 allowable exceptions. And that's the LIP, or the licensed independent practitioner, controls the ordering, dispensing, and administration of the drug.
Let's take down the pace a little bit. I know you want to get it all out there, but her fingers are going to catch on fire. We don't want that, okay?
Correct. So the licensed independent practitioner, or somebody with prescription authority, controls the ordering, dispensing, and administration of the drug. But like in the operating room, endoscopy suite, emergency room, or cath lab suite, so if the physician is physically present during a procedure and are ordering the drugs and watching them be administered, or emergency situations which time does not permit the pharmacist review, such as stat orders or circumstances where patient harm or discomfort could result from a delay in administration of the medication, including situations in which the patient experiences a sudden change in clinical status.
Okay, thank you. So could you define for us what ordering, dispensing, and administration means with respect to the drug that would be, drug or drugs that would be dispensed on override? What do those terms of art mean?
Well, the ordering of the drug is a order that has a dose, a route, what product to administer. The dispensing is the act of dispensing, so that is like authorizing it for use, if you will. So a pharmacist reviews it and it releases or we dispense it from the pharmacy. Physicians authorizing that, or a provider that has prescriptive authority authorizing the use of that. And administration of the drug is the review and observation of actually administering that drug.
Where is the pharmacy department under this bullet point?
They are not in the process.
Okay. At all?
Correct.
What is Lexicorp and how is it used?
Did you mean LexiComp?
Lexicon, yeah.
It's a tertiary reference for medication information, dosing, compatibility, indications, et cetera.
Okay. And is this used widely in your department?
Yes.
Okay. And have you personally used it?
Yes.
What are the IV guidelines in your hospital? What is that?
It's a reference that has common indications and dosages of a variety of drugs given IV. So there'll be one IV guideline per medication.
Okay.
So it'll have adverse effects, other things. It's a reference to familiarize yourself with that product.
Okay. Going to hand an exhibit 26BB to the witness. Dr. Miles, what is this exhibit?
That's a policy.
Is it entitled Medication Administration and Self-Administration Guidelines?
That's what I remember, yes.
And it's a 5-page document, correct?
I did not count the pages.
Okay. Did you happen to note the date on the back of promulgation?
I believe it was 2017.
Yes, correct. And it is kept in the regular course of business at Mount Carmel? Or was kept in the regular course of business at Mount Carmel?
It was in our policy folder, yes.
Okay. Correct. May I publish, Your Honor?
There's no objection, that's fine.
Objection.
Any objection?
Could you please review number 23, the paragraph at the top? Tell us what that is and what it means.
It's one of the subheadings, and it's basically stating that patient conditions warrant giving medications outside of IV guidelines at times. So I would interpret that as you're individualizing
Objection, Your
patient
Honor.
care.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't think there's been a foundation that he wrote the policies in terms of him interpreting them, but I don't mind him saying what he says.
Okay. You want to rephrase, or do you want me to rule?
I'll rephrase. Dr. Miles, have you used this policy
Yes,
in the past? So you're familiar with its use as you interface with other people in the hospital, including physicians?
yes.
Okay. And if there is a situation where a physician is interested in making an order outside of IV guidelines, what happens?
There should be an escalation of the question and research of supporting evidence for said indication and dose.
Okay, and when you say an escalation of the issue, where does that go?
It could go to the clinical coordinator, myself. It could be that person diving into the literature if they have the opportunity, or if the provider furnished that, it would be shared. So the IV guidelines could be updated.
Okay, so what is the expectation under this policy when you are dealing with a physician as far as what you are going to receive from that physician?
I mean, it states that if a reference cannot be located or provided by the prescriber, it would be reviewed by others.
Okay, and they talk about special approval, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Dr. Miles, was there a time in 2018 when a pharmacist by the name of Talon Schroyer was your direct report?
Yes,
Okay. Does Talon still work at the hospital?
he does not.
Okay. Was there a time in October of 2018 where Talon Schroyer sought you out at the end of one of his shifts and expressed a concern to you.
Yes.
What was that concern?
My recollection is he stopped me as I was going to get a cup of coffee, and he asked to speak to me. He said he had a concern about a dose of a medication, and he gave me some information about the patient. I don't remember any other real specifics about that.
Okay. Who was the physician involved in this?
It was Dr. William Husel.
Okay. And what did you tell Talon about your conversation with him?
I asked him to put in a voice report if there was a concern, and it was the end of his day and end of his week, and he was packed up, ready to go. So I took it upon myself to enter it.
So you did it?
I entered a voice, well, I facilitated a voice report being entered. I spoke with another colleague, and then she ultimately put it in, is my recollection.
Okay. Who was that other colleague?
It was Katie Barger.
Okay. Did you ever see the voice report that was put in?
Yes.
First of all, what is a voice report?
Voice report is anything that's not colleague-related. Event reporting could be somebody fell in the hallway, could be medication, could be an extravasation. It's just a repository for data, so it can be reviewed and discerned and sent out to the right people.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm approaching the witness, and I'm going to tender your states
Has she
instead
seen
of
it?
20.
Has she seen it?
At some point you have. Is the first one? Oh, what the heck. I'll bring them all. The record should reveal that there are three such. Just for the conserved time, I'm going to handle and 23A, B, and C to the witness.
Okay.
Please read me.
There's 22, A, B, and C.
He's got them all.
Yeah, no, I think you said 23.
Did I?
I think.
Did I say 23? I meant 22. Yeah, 23 is policy and procedure. I took them home over there. We didn't show them. Okay. Sir, were these voice reports, do they appear to be true and accurate? copies of what was reported?
From what
Through this
what I can
system.
recall, yes.
Okay.
I'm
It-
sorry, we talked at the same time. What was your reason?
From what I can recall, yes.
Okay, all right. And these are kept in the ordinary course of business at the hospital?
That's correct,
This is a routine function?
yes.
Okay. May I, Your Honor?
I assume there's no objection?
Any objection?
No.
Okay. There's the page 1 for the first. And this appears to be about James Timmons, age 39, male. Is that correct?
Yes.
Are you guys able to see that? It's kind of bright.
Too much? Do you guys want me to adjust a little bit? Oops. Is that better? You mean I actually successfully adjusted a piece of technology? It's impossible. Okay. Do you agree with the brief factual description of what happened here?
Yes,
Is this representative of what was reported to you by Talon Schroyer?
I don't remember the lauded portion, but I do remember the fentanyl and the Versed.
Okay. What is rhabdo? Do you know?
It's rhabdomyolysis. It's an acute situation. I'd let a physician better
Okay.
articulate
We'll
that.
ask somebody else, just for the jury, to see if there's anything else in there. And then it said, per risk management, we'll send a peer review?
Yes,
Okay. And was that your expectation, that that's what would happen?
yes,
That it would go to peer review?
yes.
For the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what is a peer review or peer review system in the medical world?
That is when a specific case with a patient goes in front of a group of physician peers to get evaluated and tested against the literature. I'm not familiar with exactly what happens. I've not been purview to any of those sort of processes. It's a very closed session. It's private. There's no follow-up given afterwards.
Okay. And do you know whether or not that peer review ever happened?
Then or now? What time are you referring to that?
The peer review that was thought to happen out of Voice Report 1, did that happen?
It did not.
Okay. Were you privy to why it didn't happen?
I came to the understanding later on that it was canceled.
Okay. All right. Did you later receive a series of emails in November of 2018 regarding Dr. Husel and patients being given high doses of fentanyl?
I recall 2 emails, yes.
Yes, okay. Dr. Miles, were these emails that were received by you in your capacity as a manager in the pharmacy department at Mount Carmel West Hospital?
Portions of them were. Some
Okay.
of them were from other people that I wasn't attached to.
Okay. And do you believe these were kept in the regular course of business?
It's my understanding.
Okay. May I publish, Your Honor?
Objection?
I'm placing State's Exhibit 20A. there are two parts. There's a bottom and a top. I'm going to start with the bottom on the thread. What is 20A? What does it say?
Do you want me to read the whole email, or?
Oh, just, you can summarize.
What is your understanding of what that document
Yeah.
says?
Yeah, it was notification to me that there was a dose that was high for a palliative ventilator withdrawal. And it was communicated to me from Greg Dresbach that worked night shift.
Okay. And who was, there's a patient number, is that correct?
That's correct, that's their account number.
And it appears to be a 75-year-old person that was admitted with worsening edema.
Yes, with shortness of breath and worsening edema.
Okay, okay. And there was what Greg Dresbach referred to as a cocktail of fentanyl and midazolam given to this patient in the course of a palliative withdrawal. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And I'm going to move it now to the top part where you sent a reply email. Is that what you did?
Yes,
Okay. And this says, okay, I pushed it up the chain of command. I put in a voice on this one,
correct.
correct? Okay. I previously presented to you State's Exhibit 22B, which was a voice report dated 12/19/2018. Is this a voice report that you prepared?
That one, I believe, was the one I prepared.
Okay. I'm going to place the top page on the projector. And this is with regard to patient Rebecca Walls, 75-year-old lady, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then there's a paragraph, long paragraph here, of your reasoning why you were presenting the voice report. Is that correct?
Correct, that's a cut and paste of that, and with the verbiage on there, believe it was the same patient, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to re-review the document.
Okay. What would help? Would the discharge date, admission date?
Yep, that appears to be the same patient, it's the right
Okay,
number. Yeah.
all right. And it's, you've said there have been a few instances of highly questionable palliative withdrawal orders by Dr. Husel, correct?
Yes, that was basically a copy and paste from Greg's email.
Okay. And what happened with this voice report? Do you know?
Yes, I sought out and spoke to Dr. Swanner and asked what happened with the last one, and that's when I found out peer review was canceled in October. And I requested it be reviewed promptly.
Okay. Why did you feel that prompt review was warranted?
Because it wasn't reviewed, the previous case wasn't reviewed because the peer review was canceled.
What were your concerns at that time?
Duplication at that point in time, that was my understanding of a second instance of this happening.
Okay.
So I wanted it to be reviewed promptly.
Okay. And as a pharmacist, what do you think your primary function is in the context of the hospital?
Review medications for safe and appropriate use.
Okay. Then there came a time when, I'm sorry, let me rephrase. Was there a time where you received an email from Greg Dressbach dated November 21st of 2018.
Yes.
And was that kept in the ordinary course of business at the hospital?
Yes.
Okay. May I publish, Your Honor?
May.
And this has a top and a bottom. There's an email from, purports to be from Dressbach there, but there's a response, and I'll show that in a minute.
Can you tighten that up a little bit, because it's kind of fuzzy,
Tighten.
even with my glasses on.
Okay.
You got lucky once. There you go.
Is that better?
That's much better.
Okay.
Is that much better for you guys?
Yeah. Okay, and this one starts, here we go again, right?
Yes.
Okay. And when he says, here we go again, what's he talking about?
I would assume he was talking about the second time since Monday, because the
Okay.
previous one was the 19th.
Okay. And he says, it goes into a little bit of the patient. The patient's an 82-year-old woman, correct?
Correct.
Okay. There was a cocktail of fentanyl, 2,000 micrograms, and 10 milligrams of midazolam used in a palliative withdrawal, correct?
That's what he stated, yeah.
Okay. There's some other information in there about the nurse and the vials and the charting.
Is that a question, Jon?
I think she's getting to it, but
I'm getting-
let's get to the question. Sustain.
Which we probably don't need to get into right now. But then above, there's an indication that you did something with this email. What did you do with it?
I forwarded on to Sarah. I was on PTO at that time, but I still logged in and checked my email. And I saw this, so I immediately forwarded it on.
Okay. And were you on vacation or?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, doctor, when you say PTO,
Paid time off, I'm sorry.
okay.
Thank you.
I mean, this is your life, we're trying to understand it.
Yeah, we're acronym rich, I apologize.
Well, and you define things with the word you're defining too. That's beside the point.
Actually, we are too, so it's just a matter of meshing the two systems.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have our own lingo.
And, you know, in truck language, PTO, I think, is power takeoff. Is that right? I'm pretty
I
sure,
couldn't tell you.
yeah. So. So what did you do as a result of that email?
That email, I called Janet Whitty, who was my next one up at that point in time, because my immediate supervisor was on a leave of absence.
Yeah. Why was that?
I believe he had surgery.
Yeah, yeah, this is Sean O'Connell, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, he had surgery. Okay. So, did you forward this information to a person by the name of Katie Barga?
I also forwarded it to her.
Okay. And this is kind of a cut and paste, is that right? At the bottom?
Yes,
Okay, so you use the old email and then sent it to who?
yes, I sent it to Katie.
Okay,
Okay, when you concentrate, your voice goes down. It's human nature, don't worry about it, okay? But when you look at something, you're concentrating, your voice will go down. I want her to be able to hear your answer.
Okay.
okay. And what did you tell Katie?
I said I'm on PLT, or paid leave time, another acronym for time off. Today, can you please escalate this as well? And then gave her my cell phone number.
And your comment was, we have significant risk with this.
Yes.
And then the top part, have you ever seen the top part?
I was CC'd on it, so yes, I apparently saw it at
Okay.
some point in time.
And what does this purport to be?
A statement from Katie that says that there's a third case. Is there any way we can manage it sooner rather than later? I know we have meetings set up next week, but is somebody able to talk to the physician as soon as possible?
Okay, thank you. And as a result of this third incident, what did you do with respect to a voice report?
I was on time off at that point in time. I believe Katie was the one that entered this one.
Okay. Did you ever review it in real time, or was today the first time you ever saw it?
Well, I wasn't able to review it in real time because I was on vacation at that point in time, but the next time, you can't access the voice system from outside of the confines of the organization.
Okay,
So the next time I was at the organization, I reviewed it, yes.
okay. And that's States Exhibit 22C that I presented to you before.
Yes, that was the
Okay.
record of that.
And that looked familiar?
Yes,
Is it a document kept in the ordinary course of business at Mount Carmel Hospital? Or
Yes.
was it at that time?
yes.
Okay.
Were you able to get all that?
Yes.
And this purports to involve Mrs. Penix, 82-year-old lady, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And purports to involve treatment by a physician on November 20th of 2018. Correct?
Was this, no, let's see, that was the last night at, yes, the November 20th, that was in
Yeah,
the late evening.
okay.
Yes, correct.
And it was palliative withdrawal? Is that
That's what it
correct?
appears to be.
Okay, that was the subject matter, correct. And the expectation at that time was what? That what would happen with this?
That would go to peer review.
Okay. A moment, Your Honor.
Sure. They're getting there. Can you guys drive till 5? Go all the way to 5, or just somebody need a break? If one person needs a break, we'll take a break.
Can we just take a little stretch break, Judge, just so it's kind of late in the day while we're organizing here?
That's fine. I was more worried about them than I was you.
I know, I've been at it, so I was just,
Is she, I'm sorry, is she done?
no,
No.
we're just asking her about something, so maybe a little stretch break would be okay, instead of having people excuse.
I was just, if she was done, I was gonna take advantage and let him have 10 minutes, but. They all got great bladders. Said y'all got great bladders then, right? That wasn't a question, that was a commentary.
Thank you, Your Honor. A couple additional points.
Do you have questions?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Questions? Let's turn our attention back to States Exhibit 22B. That's the, I'm sorry. The reported severity. Now, this is one of the voice reports that you made, correct?
That's the one I made, yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Can you comment upon the reported severity, 0, NA, or unknown? What does that mean?
That means it's not quantified yet. I didn't want to put a label on it because I didn't know, without peer review happening, I didn't want to stratify that. It could be adjusted
Okay.
later.
Okay. And on the same document, did you enter the actual severity level 4 on that?
No, I don't believe I did.
Okay. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Ms. Menashe?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good afternoon.
Hello?
How are you?
Good.
Good. You know, I will just start with this voice. Showing you what's previously been marked as State's Exhibit 22A with respect to James Timmons. Remember
Yes.
this? Okay.
Yes.
And so we can back up a second. James Timmons is associated with the phone call you received from Talon Schroyer, correct?
No, he caught me in the morning. That was from October.
I'm sorry, what?
That was from October. He talked to me in the morning. There was no phone call.
Oh, I'm sorry. He talked to you, I think, when you said you were getting coffee.
Correct.
And as a result of that, based on what he told you, did you make a voice report?
No, I had a discussion with Katie, and Talon had left and had not entered it, so we decided we needed to enter it at the moment.
I remember in your Columbus Police Department interview, right towards the beginning, you were asked to describe your job duties. Do you remember that question?
Yes?
And you told the detectives that you basically fixed things.
Yes, we have a lot of machinery. We have some of it is aged, so keep our processes moving smoothly. Could be anything from helping facilitate a broken door that's in our department to, procuring new hardware, procuring new items to support the distribution needs for the department.
Certainly, as part of your job as in operations, that if you had information that drugs were administered that had potentially hastened the death of a patient, you would have run and done a voice report, would you not have?
Yes?
In fact, just common sense, wouldn't you almost even thought to call 911?
I don't know what I would have thought back then.
And instead, you went to Katie. Right? You didn't do a voice report. You went and told Katie?
Our patient safety risk officer, I had a discussion because quite honestly, I wasn't sure about the dosages, so I felt like it needed further review. And I discussed about going to peer review.
And when you say you weren't sure about the dosages, just so we're clear, how many years have you been a licensed pharmacist?
At that point in time, in 2018, 6.
6 years. So it's Katie that actually enters the voice report in that states Exhibit 22A, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and that's why her name is on top right here. It says entered by Katie Varga.
correct.
And then on page 2, you were just asked about the reported severity.
Correct.
And then right underneath that, would you agree there's a line that says actual severity level?
I do.
In the course of your role at the time, and again, your role was what?
Manager?
Manager of the pharmacy.
That's correct.
And so you're familiar with these voice reports.
Yes.
How long just generally does it take to input a voice report, would you estimate?
It depends on the amount of information that's needed to be put in. So it's variable. Could be 5, could be 10 minutes.
5 or 10 minutes to put in a voice report.
Yes.
Right here on reported severity, with respect to State's Exhibit 22A, it says 4, correct?
Yes.
And then actual severity, it also says 4,
Yes.
correct? And you would agree with me, based on your role as the manager and knowledge of voice reports, that the scale of a voice report goes up to 9.
Yes.
And a 9 indicates the most severe, noting an event that contributed to death. That's what a 9 is, right?
Yes.
And this is a 4.
I didn't score that.
Because you didn't do the voice report.
My understanding is Katie Barge's role is to actually do the actual severity level.
Have you ever heard of an expression, garbage in, garbage out?
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
It means with poor data, you have poor assumptions to make decisions.
And based on what you told this jury, you're the one that reported the conversation with Talon Schroeder to Katie, right?
Yes.
We want to go to the next page of this voice report with respect to James Timmons. Actually, sorry, I will go to page 4 of 6. Who's Erlene Romine?
She was the manager of the ICU at the time, nurse manager.
So she oversaw the ICU at the time.
From a nursing perspective, yes.
And right here it says follow-up actions, and would you agree it notes followed up by, and it indicates her name?
Yes.
Flipping the page to page 5 of 6, what does it say under details?
I need more information about this issue. These medications would be appropriate for a palliative patient.
The manager of the ICU wrote that in the voice report
The nurse manager did, yes.
upon her review.
I guess you'd have to double check with her, but that's my understanding.
Stop, everybody. There's too many people talking first, okay? We'll stop at the question as it's pending. You have an objection as the speculative, and he attempted an answer. Are you up with me, court reporter? Okay. Rephrase the question, sustained.
Absolutely. Page 4 of 6. Does it have a date
Yes,
above Erlene Romine's name?
yes.
And what's the date, if you could?
Yeah, October 31st.
And there's a time associated with it as well, right?
Yes,
And then on the following page, there's a detail section,
yes,
and that's where it says these medications would be appropriate for a palliative patient. Correct?
yes, that's what it states.
And then further down, there's a detail section, there's a section where your name is indicated. Is that right?
That is mine, yes.
And the date on that is a month later, on almost a month later, 11/30/2018. You see
Right.
that? And there's a details section there, right?
Yes.
And you've written nothing.
Not in that section.
I remember in your Columbus Police Department interview, you talked about it was part of your job to fix things, and that when Talon Schroyer told you about this incident, it was like a puddle that you wanted to clean up off the floor. Do you remember saying something like that?
I do not.
You would agree with me that a slip and fall is different from
Potentially. I mean, a slip and fall could cause somebody's death.
Let's talk about 22B, Rebecca Walls. This voice report does appear to be entered by you.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to go here. Reported severity, you have indicated, have you not, 0 or unknown?
Yes, I indicated unknown.
And certainly, because you're familiar with the 0 to 9 scale of severity, that if you believed you were reporting an event which contributed to death, you would have listed it as a 9.
If at that time that's what my thought was, yes.
And the actual severity of that incident upon review was noted to be a 4, correct?
That's what it appears to be.
Going now to the third voice report that you were shown, 22C. This one relates to Melissa Penix. Look familiar?
Yes.
And this report, again, not entered by you, but by Katie Barga, is that correct?
That's correct.
And this, with respect to Melissa Penix, reported severity is what?
4.
And the determined actual severity is noted as what?
4.
I want to ask you, there's an indication there of DNR-CC. Do you know difference between DNR-CCA and DNR-CC?
Not specifically.
Would you, you don't know what each one means?
I don't use it in my daily activities of work now.
Okay. I want to go to, you were shown States Exhibits 23B, C, and D. There were a series of policies and procedures with respect to the dispensing system. Do you recall those?
Yes.
I want to go over, if we could. I'll just take the one from 2015. This is States Exhibit 23C. Would you agree with me that attached to each one of these is a list of medications that is kept or was kept in the Pyxis machine at the hospital during the relevant time frame?
I mean, not all those medications were in every Pyxis machine, but many of those were in Pyxis machines, yes.
And any medication that was in a Pyxis machine somewhere could be overridden, correct?
If it was on that list, yes.
Okay. If I could approach, well, let me just go through each one. I'll try to save time late in the day. 23C. Does it appear that these are alphabetical?
Yes.
These listed medication? Okay. Just want to, here's fentanyl, correct?
Yes.
All right. And just alphabetically, I want to turn the page and look and see if you see ketamine, where it would appear alphabetically.
Do not.
Okay, you do not see ketamine in 23C. I want to go to 23D. These aren't. Where it would appear alphabetically, do you see ketamine?
I do not.
Okay. But you do see on the prior page where fentanyl is.
I do.
I say this because if a medication is not kept in a Pyxis machine, it would potentially be kept in the basement. I'm sorry, on the first floor in the pharmacy. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And if a medication isn't in a machine, then hypothetically, if I was Dr. Husel, I wouldn't ever have to call and ask for an override on that medication, correct?
There would not be interface with the pharmacy during an override.
So there wouldn't even be a call.
Not that I'm aware of.
Right? And so if a medication isn't in the Pyxis machine, like ketamine, but it's downstairs in the pharmacy, because I think you had your own medicine safe down there, did you not?
Yes,
The medication is in that safe in the pharmacy, and it's not in the Pyxis, and I am a doctor in ICU, and I need ketamine. How do I obtain some ketamine for a patient?
they'd have to put in an order for it.
And it would come down to the pharmacy, correct?
Yeah, go through the Q-based system and it'd be reviewed and dispensed.
And if it's in the pharmacy, and only in the pharmacy, it couldn't be overridden, correct?
Correct,
It's not in the drawer.
correct.
Also, with respect to what you were asked about overrides, I think generally on direct, you were asked about these bullet points. I'll just go to 23D if we could. This second bullet point right here, under special comments about overrides. Would you agree with me that it says that overrides can happen in emergency situations when time does not permit the pharmacist review, such as a stat, all caps, orders, or circumstances when patient harm or discomfort could result from delay in administration of a medication? Goes on, does it not, to say, including situations in which the patient experiences a sudden change in clinical status.
I agree, that's what it says.
That's when an override is okay.
That's what that policy said at the time.
And these were the Mount Carmel policies during the relevant time frame that we're talking about here today.
Yes.
Also, if I'm a nurse and I decide to do an override, I don't need a doctor's permission to do the override, correct?
They would need an order for the medication.
Sure, but the order, I could get a verbal order. Give me, 200, 500 micrograms of fentanyl. They get the verbal order and they type it in. It's the person that's potentially taking the medicine out that decides whether to override it, correct?
Yes.
And you said on your direct that the persons that have access to Pyxis machines are the nurses and the pharmacists.
Yes.
And I'm assuming that includes also pharmacy techs that come and fill the machines?
Correct.
Do you remember the date of your interview with Columbus Police Department?
I do not remember the specific date.
Would it sound about right that it was in December of 2018?
Yes.
And where was that interview?
It was at Mount Carmel West.
And during that interview, you were asked about dosages. Do you remember those questions?
Yes.
And you indicated to the police at the time, did you not, that dosing is very individualized?
I stated that, yes.
And then you went on to explain that tolerance is one of the factors that one must consider when looking at dosages.
That's correct.
And that's true, right? And surely, as I know that you testified that you were a pharmacist who reviewed orders at one point in your career, determining the appropriateness of an order that comes through must take into account someone's tolerance.
Yes.
And that can include not just the medication they've recently received at the hospital, but let's say if they're an opioid addict.
Yes.
I want to show you, again, State's Exhibit 22A with respect to James Timmons. The narrative here, does it not? 39-year-old came in after being found down in a basement for an unknown amount of time with a needle in his arm.
Yes.
And then it goes on to say that he was pulseless and CPR started, correct?
Yes,
And urine positive for cocaine and marijuana.
correct.
Certainly someone that might be an IV drug user might have a different tolerance than, let's say, someone that doesn't abuse heroin.
Object.
Okay. Let's lay some foundation.
Sure.
And we're talking about different classes of drugs here, so
I
I think
understand.
we're.
That's why I wanted to lay some foundation.
Okay. So I'm happy to go back. Tolerance. A couple ways to look at tolerance. Fair to say you can look at tolerance of the amount of medication that someone has received, let's say, in their most recent hospital stay, right? Like how much fentanyl do they get in 6 days before the order comes through?
Sure.
That could be something to look at for tolerance.
You look at the response from that, yes.
Yes. And then would it be, as a pharmacist, relevant to you when determining the appropriateness of a medication to know if someone for whom an order was being placed, particularly a fentanyl order, had an addiction to opioids?
Yes.
Which explains why during your Columbus Police Department interview, you said, did you not, opioids are something you get tolerant to?
I can't specifically recall, but that's true.
And then I remember when you were asked the question about fentanyl, and you said that fentanyl was a drug that was used in the ICU.
Yes,
And so the use of fentanyl alone was not a red bell for you,
correct.
or a red flag.
Yes.
I want to turn to an issue that just relates to your testimony about a pharmacist and reviewing an order.
Okay.
Prospective review. If I'm a pharmacist, I get the order, it comes down, I review it for appropriateness. And always safety is in my mind, right, as a pharmacist.
Yes.
I review it for appropriateness, and then if I think it's appropriate, I hit verify.
Yes.
Then there is what you discussed as a retrospective review. And your testimony was that upon a retrospective review, there's no other option than to hit verify.
Except.
Except. You would agree with me, though, that there is still a comment section on a retrospective review.
Not from my understanding. It's you hit accept. That's the only option, period.
And so you would be, as a pharmacist, hitting an accept button if you looked at a dosage and you thought that dosage could have killed someone.
Yes.
And you would never have reported that?
Are you asking me as a pharmacist, or are you asking?
Yeah, you as a pharmacist. Like, let's say that you had retrospectively reviewed any dosage that you thought might have hastened someone's death.
Okay. Either identify you're using it, because it's not on the record, you turned it around.
So, well, I can just ask you the numbers. Let's say a 2,000 order of micrograms of fentanyl comes to you for a and it's a retrospective review.
In my practice, I would ask questions, yes.
How would you ask questions?
I would make a phone call.
And who would you call?
I would call the provider that was linked with that order.
What would you ask them?
What was the course of action and what happened and why was it utilized? How
And
was
if
it
they-
utilized?
Oh, sorry. Because making those calls is part of being a pharmacist.
Yes.
How many calls would you say in your career reviewing orders that you made to providers, just maybe upstairs?
Well, I also practiced on the floor, so there was access to them immediately. So if you want to just ask questions, how many questions I've asked physicians? Thousands.
So fair to say that's a pretty common practice.
Yes.
And if you ask questions, I'm assuming in your training and expertise, if you ask questions and you don't get enough information, I'm assuming you ask more questions.
Yes,
Like if somebody said to you, oh, that medication was for a procedure, and you wanted to know more about the procedure, fair to say you'd say, what kind of procedure?
yes.
So going back to the options in the machine, you were asked during your Columbus Police Department interview about when a pharmacist prospectively can reject a medication.
Okay,
Do you remember that?
I do.
And do you remember telling them that actually, that the nurses actually don't necessarily see a rejection of a medication?
Yes, there's a small icon that changes.
And you indicate to the police that it can be of no consequence to the nurse. It's more of a pharmacist to pharmacist. Like, hey, I'm working on this, don't touch it type of thing.
That's often how it's utilized, yes.
And when you say it's utilized, the reject button.
The reject button. So if they're clarifying or calling a physician, they would hit the reject button.
And so it's really pharmacy focused.
I would say that's fair.
One moment, Your Honor. Your Honor, can we approach? Just right here.
Oh, it's just one? Okay.
Because it's just a logistics question.
Yeah. Break for the night because she's got some more time there and it's a good breaking point. Ladies and gentlemen, remember the admonitions. Let's not discuss anything about the case at all. Okay? You're not to do your own investigation or disregard the press and the media. Okay? So if something comes on the TV involving somebody, you ignore it, you turn it off. Okay? Any questions? Okay, and the lawyers are gonna avoid you. Okay, we're gonna get started at 9 in the morning. Okay, you guys have a great evening. Get lots of sleep. Okay, I'll see you guys in the morning. Just relax. I gotta talk to you for a second.
They said all right, sign it.
Yeah, they're fine. I thought you were trying to walk on out the door.
No, he said rise.
Doctors sometimes run out of here, so,
No,
okay.
follow directions.
Yep, just give me 1 second, make sure I got all my stuff here.
Have a great evening, guys.
Thank you. That's mine.
At least I'm not driving an hour
I
right
don't see
away.
any more red stickers.
Okay, let's go back on. Okay, doctor, you're on the stand right now. You're gonna have to come back in the morning, okay?
Oh, Your Honor, we have Dr. Hagris via Zoom at 9.
From Egypt, we
From
told you about
Egypt.
this at the beginning.
Okay, how long will this take? Because this man, I don't wanna tie up his entire day sitting in the hallway.
Judge, it's already set. I mean, they're like on a different time zone. That's why we said we had to do a hard
I understand.
start time. I don't know.
I can deal with the jury on it. If I tell him to come back at, let's say, 2:30,
I would say noon. But we
Noon?
have, he's represented by Mr. Gobble. We can be in constant contact with Mr. Gobble, see how the morning's going.
are you flexible tomorrow?
I can be.
You're gonna be.
Yes.
Okay? Okay, we have a gentleman testifying from Egypt that we have to set up special links for, so we'll, through your attorney, we will get in touch with when to return. Okay?
I'll be here.
Do you need anything for your employee?
No.
Okay? You're excused.
Was I loud enough towards the end?
Huh?
Was I better with volume towards the end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's human nature that when people concentrate, their voice goes down because they're busy concentrating. But these are the things I do. I used to teach doctors how to testify.
Yeah, I totally
It's okay. Should have paid for my course. Kidding. Have a good night.
For nothing here.
And no one likes seeing me. That's okay. Okay. I'll let him clear the room. We have to clear the record, so. And I always ask, is there anything for the record? So, Ms. Grubb, anything for the record?
I don't believe so, Your Honor.
Those in the back of the courtroom, keep it down for a minute. Let me finish.
Are we all set with the Zoom in the morning? Is that technology in place?
It'll be in place, don't worry. I thought she already sent out the,
The link is, but are we just going to do it on this then, or do we have TVs? I mean, I don't know how you're going to.
it'll be done in here.
Yeah, but
So
on this
you will
projector.
see the Zoom actually up on the screen.
So there's nothing more we have to do on that?
Not that I'm aware of. I will ask Darcy before she goes. Ms. Menashe, anything for the record?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, record's closed. Hey, Janet.